Now, speaking of advice and
Yeah.
compassion, how much compassion did Rizalman put into the advice to get into the captains?
A lot of compassion.
A lot of compassion.
A lot of compassion, because you have to have, empathy when you're going to give advice to the person. But I'm not the person to,
But you know.
We have to check with our motivator this morning. As usual, we welcome Murshida Said back in the studio. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And may I mention, you are looking fabulous
Yes,
this morning.
celebrating the occasion, whatever the occasion is. Every day we have a special occasion. So
Today, yes,
Exactly.
I think
Celebrate every
high
day.
fashion is going to be on our show shortly. Rizalman, so it's celebrated in our guest lah. So compassion, I mean, compassion and advice.
yeah,
I don't know, how do they go hand in
right.
hand?
You know, when we talk about giving advice, how many times when somebody tells you, right, I want to give you a bit of advice, I hope you don't mind. Can you say no? But how do you feel? You know, you have
Wait
this like.
a minute.
It's okay. Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you for your feedback. Zoom, you run out, right? Because when you see advice, a lot of people feel a connotation of negativity or condescending coming, a message of being condescending from the other party. Now, giving advice is not about being condescending. It is about giving positive feedback, giving something, a blind spot that we all have, about something that we are doing. And when somebody else shares that person's point of view about his perspective, right, which we normally don't see, right? That is giving advice. But giving advice with compassion is very, very different from being condescending, right? So a lot of times when people say, "Oh, I think you should do this. I would have done this if I were you," or you say that I would have, could have, you could have done this, or you should have done this. That puts people in a negative state, right? So you don't get the message out there, right? You don't get the input on from the other person to see the bigger picture.
Because you're shut off.
Yeah, you're shut off. And because, when a person says you should have done this, you could have done this, I would have done this, it puts, it blocks the fundamental human emotional needs that everybody has, and that is to be respected, to be loved, to be acknowledged, and to be understood. So once that's blocked, you do not get the message across. And the person relaying the message, the intention is also very, very important, because if you see what, you see for the benefit of the person or the bigger purpose, it's different when you relay the advice or you're giving the feedback compared to you seeing things from your own perspective and you say, you want that person to do something, or that person would have improved because of this person who's giving advice purpose, So it's important to see from both points of view as well. And giving advice with compassion is very critical, especially when it comes to parenting. And I'm going to share this because I have seen a lot of parents, and I've also coached some parents where they say, I always give advice, but they don't listen to me. It's the way we give advice to the child. Because no matter how great the message is, no matter what benefit it has for the child, if the manner the parent gives the advice to the child is lost, it's in a negative state, the child automatically shut off. Maybe they will follow, but they do not see the bigger purpose, and they will, behind the parents' back, they will do something else. And this happens at home, and this also happens at work. At work, when bosses say, you should do this, because of my purpose, and it's not for the purpose of a bigger picture, and without respecting the employee, again, that is what happens when they may do it just for the sake of the job, but they're not doing things at the peak performance.
Yeah, and what you mentioned just now, what you mentioned actually symbolizes a little bit of empathy on your part and the part of the person giving the advice. So a lot of people say you have to learn from your mistakes. So when you give advice, should you give advice based on your experiences and your mistakes, or should you empathize with the person's condition?
Exactly. Sometimes when you give advice or the situation, the other person that you're giving advice to is something that you don't even have experienced, right? Yes, so empathy is really important. And when I talk about giving advice, before giving advice, listen first, right? Listen unconditionally. Normally when people listen, they're planning the next things to say, right?
Wow, that's hard to do.
Yes. So listen, be present, 100%. And be empathetic and listen from the other person's point of view. And then ask permission first, because sometimes, you know, the person doesn't want to advise, they just want somebody to listen to them. So ask permission first. Is it, would you like me to share my opinion? And then if the person says yes, that opens the communication barrier.
I've learned that the hard way, being a guy. When a woman, you know, does the whole emotional dumping, she just wants to be heard. She doesn't want any advice coming from you. But having said that, though, you've just given us the ultimate opener. Everyone uses that, you know. I've got some advice for you. Hope you don't mind. You know, what is the best way to actually say that line while expecting the other person to listen?
Okay, like I said just now, listen first, because sometimes when a person comes to you and shares their problems, it is a cry for help. Like I think I talked about that topic before. It is a cry for help. So allow the person to talk, listen, and do not be judgmental, right? Maybe it's something that you wouldn't have done if you're coming up from the other person's point of view. So you just listen unconditionally, be empathetic, and then try to understand from the other person's point of view, because people just basically want to be understood. They just want to be heard, right? So just listen, and then you ask permission. Is it okay, you know, if I share my point of view? And then also listen out for the opening, because you can hear what is being said, and what is being meant. So you hear for the opening, and then you say, okay, you know, this is, if the person is, you know, say, what do you think? You know, what do you think? If you're in my position, what would you have done? And then you share if it's me, you know, but perhaps from your point of view it may be different, but from my point of view, this is what I would have done. And the best way to give feedback, and this is something that we have done, my husband and I have done also, is when we give feedback, we don't say, oh, where everything went wrong, or what you should have done, you know. We don't start with that. When we give feedback, we always start with something about what the person did right, because how many times, right, a person has done right or most of their life, right, and nobody acknowledges the person. Just everybody keeps quiet, and one small mistake, everybody starts condemning. Not only condemning, telling everybody else about it behind the person's back, right? So when a person makes a mistake or asks for advice, or if you want to give feedback or giving advice, you say what the person has done well and what that person is good in whatever they have done, but how can they improve, right? So when that happens, they say, yeah, I have done this, because even in blind spots, people don't know that they have done wrong. Sometimes even in blind spots, they don't know what they have done right. So when we acknowledge all the things they have done right and how they can improve, and not the but, you are very good at this, but when you say but, it's like, right? You can add on what can even add better to that would be, then you can give feedback.
Right.
Now,
and not
we've got an interesting question on the tail of that, but before we get into more questions from us,
let's find out what the viewers think of this topic. We went to the streets, and this is what they have to say.
And who it is that's giving the advice to you. I think if it's someone close to you, I would just listen to what they have to say, because if they're coming from a place where they feel they need to share advice with you, it means that they care about you. But if it's someone who's not too close to you, then I would just listen to them, but I may not necessarily believe what they have to say. Possibly, yeah.
Will I be able to take it? I think it depends on the person saying it. I think there are some people who give you comments and it's not meant to be constructive, it's meant to be destructive. So those you will kind of like, look, why should I listen to you? But if someone comes to me and I think it's someone who wants to say it with my betterment in view, then of course I would take it. For those who do it in a negative way, I usually write them off and just forget it, because you kind of know yourself and your own level of confidence, and you can see through whether comments are genuine or not, and what's the reason behind it. Yeah, so that's how I feel about it.
well, there you go, the responses. I think we expect response like that. But most advice, though, I feel, is sometimes retrospective. It's already happened, you know, the point in time where the advice would have worked, but
Exactly.
the point in time has already passed, so the advice is retrospective. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that, because whatever happens, even in our life, it's in the past, right? But what you do now, or the actions that you do now will affect your future. So whatever mistakes you have done in the past, it's something for you to learn from, right? And the advice or the feedback is something that you can do now to change in order to change your future. But I like what Patricia said just now when we were interviewing her, that when a person is criticizing just for the sake of criticizing, they just shut off. The person shuts off and say, "Oh, I won't take the person seriously." And this is something that, especially for people who are close to you. And if you are giving advice to your child, always remember your child already respects you. You already have that authority as a parent. They look up to you. They listen to you for advice. They're looking for guidelines on how to survive in this world through you. But if you attack them emotionally and with words or put their self-esteem down, that breaks down all the barrier. And they not only lose respect for you, they shut off, like what Patricia said. It's just being for the sake of criticism. And sometimes a child may perceive a parent doing that, whatever anger that they have towards the child or giving advice that is not constructive, it's just a matter of just being for the sake of criticizing. And when you're also in organizations, because I'm thinking of this topic in the context of family as well as in organizations. Now, always remember when you are in a company as well, and if you're leading a team, if you're managing a team, or if you're the boss of the company, and always remember when you give feedback, always give with advice, with compassion, and always see the bigger purpose, but not just to attack a person there for the sake of attacking the person, And also when if you're an employee and you're also giving advice to the boss, always remember that you give the advice with compassion and meet the person one-on-one. Whatever it is, when you give feedback or advice that is concerning one particular person, you don't share it with everybody.
Right.
You don't put a person down.
For an employee giving advice to your employer, remember bonus.
Yeah.
Back of your mind. Gotta be there. Okay, when it comes to giving advice and reaching out to someone, what's our goal? What's our goal as the person giving the advice? What do we want to achieve?
Yeah. When you see yourself in a bigger picture, it's not on an egocentric level. If you want something on your personal purpose and it's not for the other purpose at all when you give advice, then it will shut off that relationship, that communication process, right? So when you are giving advice, see things from the other person's point of view, right? For the benefit of the other person and the bigger picture, not because, I want you to do this so that, I will have a better image or I will have a better reputation or, it will make more money for me, but more towards from the other person's point of view, right? The benefit to the other person who's receiving the advice, and at the same time, see it for the purpose of us, like why are we here? Why are we working so hard for? What are we doing here on earth for? Why are we so concerned about what it is that we are doing? So when we take things from a bigger perspective, when you talk about not only your purpose in this world but also everybody's purpose in this world, it puts people on a different perspective. And it's like when you talk about everything on me, my benefit, it will shut off people no matter what. Yeah.
All right, wonderful stuff, Mushida. Thank you so much. Thank you for that advice.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you again next week with more topics.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank
look
you.
forward to that.
So
Right.
giving advice with compassion, remember that, guys. Always and not but.
Always and not but. No more buts. So